They say blood is thicker than water. But what happens when blood betrays you growing up? Madison and I were closer than sisters. She was technically my cousin, my mom's sister's daughter, but we were born just 6 months apart. Lived on the same street in Michigan and shared everything from toys to boy troubles. If one of us got grounded, the other got grounded in solidarity. If one of us cried, the other cried too. It was that kind of bond. I always thought we'd grow old together, bridesmaids at each other's weddings, godmothers to each other's kids. Never in a million years did I think she would disappear from my life. Not after everything we've been through. And definitely not after I gave her a part of myself. Literally. She was diagnosed with stage 4 kidney failure at 27. It was sudden, aggressive, and terrifying. Her eyes had dark circles, she was losing weight fast. And her voice had this constant exhaustion I couldn't unhear. When the doctor said she needed a transplant and her parents weren't matches, I volunteered without blinking. "Are you sure, Haley?" My mom asked me. The night I told her, of course, I said, "She's Madison." I went through rounds of blood work, ultrasounds, psychological evaluations, every needle, every form, every waiting room. I did it because she was worth it. I didn't just want to help her, I needed to. That's what love does. We found out I was a match on a rainy Tuesday. Madison cried when I told her. She grabbed my hands, held them tight to her chest, and whispered, "You're saving my life." That moment felt sacred. The surgery date was set for May 11th. I'll never forget how calm she looked in her hospital gown that morning. While I was shaking like a leaf, we held hands before they wheeled us into separate ORs. "I love you," she mouthed as they pulled her away. The recovery was tough. I had internal bleeding post-op and needed to be monitored for longer than expected. Madison, on the other hand, bounced back fast. Within weeks, she was walking, laughing, glowing. But something shifted. She stopped texting as much. She didn't return my calls. At first, I chalked it up to recovery fatigue. But then she started missing family events. Even when she came, she kept her distance. I caught her looking at me once at our cousin Lauren's baby shower, her face unreadable, like she owed me something and resented it. I convinced myself it was just in my head. That once enough time passed, we go back to late night coffee runs and calling each other idiot affectionately when one of us screwed up. But 2 months later, she unfollowed me on Instagram, then blocked me. No explanation, no confrontation, just vanished. It stung. But the real knife came 3 weeks later. I was sitting in the break room at work, scrolling Facebook while sipping my 3rd cup of coffee. There it was, a photo that shattered the ground beneath me. Madison on a rooftop restaurant, wearing a red dress and the biggest smile I'd ever seen. And beside her, Ethan. My ex. The man who had once planned to propose to me. The man I thought I'd marry. The man who left me a year ago, saying he needed space to figure himself out. The caption under the photo read, "I said yes to forever." Madison was engaged to Ethan. The same Ethan who knew I had given my kidney to her. The same Ethan who sat beside me after my surgery, holding my hand while I winced in pain. My cousin. My donor recipient. My betrayer. My body went cold. My hand trembled so hard. I nearly dropped my coffee. I clicked on her profile. Blocked. She hadn't just removed me from her life, she'd erased me and filled the void with someone who had already broken me once. And for the first time since the surgery, the scar on my side began to ache again. But this time, not from the wound, from the weight of betrayal. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling in the dark, replaying every interaction I'd ever had with Madison and Ethan. Every group hangout, every birthday, every conversation where they were both present, scanning for signs I had clearly missed. How long had it been going on? Had she reached out to him first? Or had he slid into her DMs when I was too busy healing from surgery to notice? The questions clawed at me, each one heavier than the last. I opened our old messages. Madison and I used to text each other dozens of times a day. Dumb memes, venting about work, photos of snacks we were eating. But there was a shift, subtle, slow. A few weeks after the transplant, her responses grew colder, then shorter, then silence. I couldn't help but wonder, had she started avoiding me because she felt guilty? Or because she already decided I wasn't part of her future anymore? I scrolled further back, landing on a message from almost a year before the transplant. Madison had sent me a screenshot of one of Ethan's Instagram photos. He was shirtless on a hike, sunglasses on, smirking at the camera. "UGH, your exes. Still so hot. How are you not stalking him every day?" she texted. I'd replied with a laughing emoji and a half-truth. "He's good looking, yeah. But that smile doesn't make up for 5 years of emotional immaturity." I remember that day now. I was still raw, still learning how to live without Ethan. And she had laughed it off like it was a joke. Was that when it started? Had she been secretly obsessed with him all along? I got out of bed and walked to the mirror. I lifted my shirt and traced the scar on my lower abdomen. It wasn't ugly, but it was deep. A physical reminder of a love I thought was mutual, a piece of myself I'd never get back. The next morning, I called my mom. I didn't even say hello. She's engaged to Ethan, I blurted. There was a pause on the other end. Then, softly, oh, honey, you knew. My voice cracked. No, I swear. I had no idea. She said quickly. But Madison's mom told me last night that something big was coming. I didn't think. God, Haley, I didn't think it would be this. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. She blocked me, Mom. After everything I did for her. She didn't even have the decency to tell me. She's your cousin. You saved her life. I can't believe this. My mom's voice broke, and I realized she was crying too. I didn't need to ask if Madison had blocked the rest of the family. She hadn't. She was still commenting on photos, liking baby announcements, and attending birthday parties. She'd only erased me. Only the girl who had literally gone under the knife for her. A week passed. Then another. Every day, I'd wonder if she'd reach out, apologize, explain. I didn't expect an apology from Ethan. He had his flaws, but I knew who he was. It was Madison who gutted me. The one person I'd never thought capable of such cruelty. Then, I got the invitation. A pale pink envelope in my mailbox, addressed in gold script. Madison Carter and Ethan Wells joyfully invite you to celebrate their marriage. I sat on the front porch steps, holding it in my lap like it might explode. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. She had the audacity to send me a wedding invitation. After blocking me, after stealing the man who broke my heart, after taking my kidney. It was like she wanted to twist the knife. But that was the moment something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to play the role of the broken donor, the abandoned cousin, the one left behind while she smiled in white lace and posed for photographers. If she thought I'd stay silent, she didn't know me at all. She may have taken a part of my body, but she wouldn't take my voice. The envelope sat untouched on my nightstand for days. Sometimes I stared at it like it might open on its own and explain everything, give me some rational, human reason why Madison would hurt me this way. Other times, I wanted to rip it to shreds, burn the ashes, flush them down the toilet. But I didn't. I needed it to sit there, like a wound that wouldn't scab, a reminder that the person I once called family had turned my sacrifice into her stepping stone. And for what? For a man who once told me I was too ambitious for his lifestyle. I finally opened the envelope the night before her bridal shower. Not out of curiosity. I'd already heard through the grapevine that it was going to be an over-the-top affair at some vineyard outside Traverse City. I opened it because I needed to feel the weight of what she was asking from me. Inside was a cream-colored card with gold foil lettering and a glossy engagement photo of them both. Madison in a flowing blue dress, her ring hand pressed against Ethan's chest like it was some kind of prize. His head tilted toward hers, grinning like a man who had no shame. I scanned the text. Date, time, venue, dress code, summer formal. Then, I noticed a dot in the bottom corner. In cursive font, a special thank you to my guardian angel who gave me the chance to live this beautiful life. No name, no photo of me, not even an initial dot, just a passive, sanitized shout out like I was a dead stranger, a guardian angel. I wasn't a ghost. I was flesh and blood, and that blood was pumping through her body. That's when it hit me. She wasn't ashamed. She was erasing me on purpose. To her, I was now a liability, a reminder of a time she'd rather forget, a chapter she'd rather close, one that didn't fit the fairy tale narrative she was trying to create. And what better way to control the story than to write me out of it? I could have ignored it, stayed quiet, taken the high road, but sometimes the high road leads nowhere. So I called Jenna, my closest friend since college and the only person who knew everything, from start to scar. She picked up on the second ring. She sent you an invitation, she asked, stunned. Double quotes, yeah. What are you going to do? I looked at the envelope again. I'm going to show up. Jenna was silent. You sure? I'm not going to scream or throw drinks or ruin her day, I said. But I'm not going to let her pretend I don't exist. I paused. She called me a guardian angel. Jenna, like I died or something. Like I didn't exist outside of the one good thing I did for her. You did more than a good thing, she said softly. You gave her a second chance at life, and this is what she did with it. A long silence settled between us. Then Jenna said something I'll never forget. Show up, not for her, for you. So when she looks around that room filled with people clapping and smiling, she'll see the one person whose silence screams louder than her vows. The day of the bridal shower was unseasonably hot. I wore a navy blue dress, simple, elegant, modest, the kind of dress you wear when you want to make a statement without saying a word. I walked into the vineyard and immediately saw the tables of cheese platters and champagne. Women in pastel dresses mingled under paper lanterns, complimenting, centerpieces and clinking glasses. Then I saw her. Madison. Hair curled, makeup flawless, smile turned up to 11. She was laughing at something a bridesmaid had just whispered, one hand covering her mouth like she was too delicate to laugh loudly. Then her eyes met mine. It was like someone had flipped a switch. Her smile faded, her hand dropped. For a full 10 seconds, she just stared like she was seeing a ghost. I smiled. Just a small one. Then I turned and made my way to the guestbook table, picked up the pen, and wrote, "Thanks for the invite. I guess I'm still useful for something." I set the pen down gently. And walked away. I didn't stay long at the bridal shower. Just long enough to let her know I wasn't invisible. Long enough to remind her that no matter how tightly she tried to seal off the past, I still existed in her story, in her bloodstream. Literally, every beat of her heart echoed because of mine. I slipped away before the speeches began. I didn't need to hear her fake gratitude or listen to her thank her support system. While glancing over the crowd like she hadn't erased me, I'd already made my presence known. When I got home that evening, I half expected a text. Maybe an angry one, maybe something defensive accusing me of ruining her day. But my phone stayed silent. Not even a passive-aggressive message. She was good at pretending I didn't matter. But I knew I'd gotten under her skin. I saw it in her eyes when they met mine across the vineyard lawn. That flash of fear, the flicker of guilt, or was it rage? She hadn't planned for me to show up. She gambled on my silence, on my pain keeping me away. She lost that bet. A few days later, I got a call from someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Ethan's sister, Claire. Claire and I had never been close, but we were civil, polite. She was a no-nonsense type, sharp, observant, and fiercely loyal to her family. When Ethan and I broke up, she sent a brief but kind message wishing me well. We hadn't spoken since. So when I saw her name light up my phone, I hesitated. Then picked up. "Haley," she said without preamble. "I heard about the shower and the wedding." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. "I'm sorry. I wish I'd known sooner." She continued, "I'm not calling to defend my brother. God knows he's done enough damage. But I thought you should hear something." My grip on the phone tightened. "They started seeing each other while you were recovering," she said quietly. "Ethan told me last week. He swore it just happened, that he didn't plan it. But I think we both know he's full of it." I closed my eyes. So it was true. I had spent weeks healing, thinking Madison was simply overwhelmed or embarrassed, giving her grace and space. Meanwhile, she had been sneaking around with the one man I had given my heart to and the one piece of my body she didn't already have. How could she? I whispered. "After everything." Claire sighed. "She's not who I thought she was either." There was a pause. "I'm not going to that wedding," she added. "My parents are furious. But they won't say anything. They're trying to keep the peace." Typical. I swallowed hard. "I don't want to ruin anything," I said. "I'm not looking for revenge, I know." She replied, "But sometimes the truth deserved witnesses." The line went quiet after that, but her words stayed with me. The truth deserves witnesses. I thought about that all night. And by morning, I'd made my decision. I was going to write Madison a letter, not a public post, not a scene, just a letter, something she couldn't twist or delete or pretend never happened. It took me 3 days to write it. I drafted it in the notes app on my phone, edited it a dozen times. Then I sat down with a real pen and paper. No email, no text. Just my handwriting, my voice on a page she'd have to physically hold. In the letter, I didn't beg for an apology. I didn't yell. I just told the truth. I told her how I cried the night after the surgery. Not from pain, but from joy, because I thought I'd saved someone I loved. I told her how I replayed her silence like a movie reel, trying to find the moment I became disposable. I told her how the scar on my body had started to feel like a warning sign, instead of a badge of love. And finally, I told her this. "I hope your new life makes you happy, but you don't get to rewrite how you got there. You don't get to call me an angel and then pretend I was never real." I folded the letter, sealed it in an envelope, and mailed it to her apartment. I don't know if she ever read it, but I do know this: for the first time in months, I slept through the night. No scrolling, no stalking, no obsessing. Just quiet and something that almost felt like peace. Weeks passed. No response. Not a text, not a call, not even a vague social media post that hinted she'd received the letter. I didn't expect her to acknowledge it. I knew Madison well enough by now to know that she only confronted things that served her image. If something couldn't be spun into sympathy or applause, she'd bury it. But I hadn't written that letter for her. I'd written it for myself still. The silence hurt in a new way. It was confirmation that the version of Madison I thought I knew, the girl who laughed until she snorted, who helped me move apartments, who once cried in my arms over a failed relationship, had either never existed or was gone for good. Then, One Sunday morning, Jenna texted me, "Jenna, check her Instagram." Right now. I hesitated. I'd unfollowed Madison months ago after the engagement, but curiosity had a sharp hook. I opened the app, typed in her name, and there it was, a post, a reel. Actually, soft piano music in the background, Madison and Ethan, dressed in white, walking hand in hand through a field of wildflowers, her dress flowing behind her, his arm protectively around her waist. The caption read, "From survival to soulmates, you were worth every second of the wait." And then the kicker, hashtag second chances, or AMI or ACLE. My stomach dropped. Survival. That was how she was branding it now, like her whole life had been some tragic uphill battle. And this wedding was the reward. And me? I was just the ghost in the background, the unspoken miracle she vaguely referenced for sympathy points. I scrolled through the comments. Dozens of heart emojis, goals, "Oh my god, you deserve this, queen. Such a fairy tale. Love story." Then one caught my eye. It was from someone named Amber, one of her newer friends. I guessed. Amber. Wait, didn't your cousin give you a kidney and you're marrying her ex? That's wild, lol. The comment had no replies, but an hour later, the post was deleted. Gone, just like that. And 2 hours after that, Jenna texted me again. "Jenna, so she's gone private now." And she unfollowed like half the people we know. I didn't even feel triumphant, just exhausted. Madison had tried to build her fantasy on silence, but the internet didn't work like that. The truth leaks, and even if she tried to hide it, someone would always remember. I put my phone down and went outside for a walk. It was a cloudy afternoon, the kind where the sky feels too low and everything looks a little washed out. But the air was cool, and the breeze carried that soft, early autumn scent of leaves about to turn. I thought about calling Ethan. Just once. Not to argue, not to scream, just to ask him why. Why Madison? Why now? Why after everything? But I didn't, because I realized I didn't want anything from him anymore. Not closure, not clarity, not even guilt. He was part of a story I was no longer writing. I took a deep breath and kept walking. For months, my world had shrunk down to two names: Madison and Ethan. Their betrayal had consumed everything: my peace, my identity, my voice. I had let their choices shape my narrative. But the truth was, I still had my life. My career, my health, my future. I still had people who loved me without taking from me. And I still had my own reflection in the mirror, scar, and all looking back with strength I hadn't recognized before. Later that evening, I opened a blank document on my laptop and I started writing. Not to them. Not about them. To myself. I wrote about the surgery, the days in the hospital, the ache and the quiet. The way recovery wasn't just physical, it was emotional, too. The way betrayal doesn't always scream when it walks in. Sometimes it slips off its shoes and tiptoes in, wearing a familiar face. I didn't write to publish. I didn't write for revenge. I wrote to remember that I existed before them. That I was whole even when people I trusted tried to break me. I wrote because words were mine, and no one could take them from me. I kept writing. Some nights it was only a few sentences. Other times, entire paragraphs poured out like I had been holding my breath for months, and only now remembered how to exhale. I didn't censor myself. I wrote about the anger, the shame, the deep, hollow ache that came from realizing you meant less to someone than they did to you. I wrote about the surgeries, the soreness, the hospital lights that buzz all night long. I wrote about waking up alone in recovery, clutching a nurse's hand instead of Madison's. I wrote about how betrayal feels different when it comes from family, how it doesn't just cut, it rearranges who you thought you were. And then, slowly, I started writing about other things. About the first time I laughed again. About how Jenna and I went out for margaritas on a random Tuesday and ended up dancing in her kitchen at 2 a.m. About the dog I'd started fostering, a scrappy little mutt with a missing ear who barked at his own reflection. I named him Oliver. He was skittish, untrusting, would flinch if I moved too fast, would sleep with one eye open. But over time, he softened. So did I. One morning, while I was making coffee, Oliver jumped on the couch and curled up next to me without hesitation. I looked at him, this little creature who had learned to trust again, and realized I was doing the same. Healing didn't look like I thought it would. It wasn't a moment. It was a million quiet choices: to get up, to eat, to reply to texts, to step outside, to not check her profile, to not look at old pictures, to resist the urge to replay conversations that would never end differently. I didn't forgive Madison, not yet. Maybe not ever. But I stopped holding my pain like a trophy. I didn't need people to know I was hurt anymore. I didn't need their outrage or pity. I just needed room to become someone else. Someone who didn't live in the shadows of someone else's selfishness. One afternoon, while I was sitting in a local coffee shop with my laptop open and Oliver snoozing at my feet, A woman tapped my shoulder. Excuse me, she said. Are you a writer? I smiled faintly. I'm trying to be. She nodded. I've seen you here a few times. You look so focused. I wish I had that kind of discipline. I laughed. It's not discipline. It's therapy. She grinned. Aren't they the same thing? We chatted briefly. Her name was Elena. She was a photographer who'd recently gone through a divorce and was thinking about starting a blog. You should, I told her. Write it all down, even the ugly parts. Especially those. She looked at me like I'd just handed her a key she didn't know she needed, and when she left, I realized I meant it. The pain I had carried for so long. It wasn't just mine anymore. It had become a bridge. A way to connect, to understand, to help. A few weeks later, I submitted an essay to a well-known digital magazine. Just one of the many personal stories they published each month. I titled it, I Gave Her Life, She Took My Past. I didn't use real names. I wasn't trying to expose anyone. I just wanted to speak the truth. A month after that, I got an email from the editor. They wanted to publish it. I stared at the screen for 5 full minutes before I even moved, and when I did, I cried, not because I was still in pain, but because I'd finally turned that pain into something real. Something that might help someone else feel less alone. The essay went live 2 weeks later. It wasn't viral, it didn't break the internet, but it was seen, read, shared, and one morning, as I scrolled through the comments, I saw a message that stopped me cold. Commenter, I had the same thing happen to me. I thought I was the only one. Thank you for making me feel seen. I sat back and let that sink in. Not all stories need loud endings, some just need to be told. A few days after the essay was published, I got an email I didn't expect. No subject line. Just from someone who used to know you. For a second, I thought it might be Ethan. But when I opened it, the name at the bottom hit harder. Madison. There was no greeting. No Dear Haley, just a wall of words that didn't know how to start and didn't dare to end too strongly. I read it. I wasn't going to. I had heard whispers. People messaging me about some article they thought was about me. At first, I rolled my eyes. But eventually, curiosity won. I clicked. It hurt. And maybe that's fair. Maybe I deserve to hurt a little. I'm not going to defend what happened. I can't. I won't say I didn't love you as family. I did. Maybe still do, somewhere. But I think I loved comfort more. I loved the version of myself I was becoming. And Ethan made that version feel real. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. But I think, deep down, you know that. I didn't block you out of hate. I blocked you because I couldn't handle looking in the mirror you became. I'm sorry I didn't reach out after the surgery. I was afraid of your disappointment, of your questions, of being exposed as a villain. And I guess now I am. I don't expect forgiveness. But I didn't want you to think I read your words and shrug them off. I couldn't. You were the best of us. Haley, you still are. There was no signature. Just I stared at the email for a long time, not because I didn't know how to feel, but because, for the first time, I realized I didn't feel much at all. There was a time I would have broken apart over those words, picked them apart, right between every line, searched for sincerity or manipulation. I would have cried or screamed or hit reply with shaking hands. But instead, I closed my laptop. Her words weren't for me. They were for her. She needed to say them, probably to ease her conscience, to scratch at the guilt without actually bleeding. And maybe that was fine. Maybe some apologies are less about rebuilding bridges, and more about leaving a light on in the distance. But I wasn't walking back to that place. Not anymore. A week later, Jenna and I were sitting at our favorite bookstore cafe she'd read the email to. I had forwarded it to her, half in disbelief, half for backup. She responded the way only a best friend can. Wow, she said, sipping her tea. So, basically, sorry I betrayed you. But I was chasing a vibe, classy. I laughed. It felt good to laugh. I'm not responding, I said. She doesn't get that access anymore. Jenna nodded approvingly. Growth. Proud of you. Later that afternoon, a woman around our age approached me in the cafe. She looked nervous, holding a copy of a local magazine in her hands, the one that had reprinted my essay. After the digital version gained traction, sorry to interrupt, she said. Are you Haley? I blinked. A yes, she smiled, but it was wobbly. I just wanted to say, thank you. I donated my kidney to my brother 3 years ago. He stopped talking to me 6 months later. I thought something was wrong with me, like I wasn't generous enough. Or maybe I made him feel guilty somehow. But your words, they helped. I was quiet for a moment, then stood and gave her a hug. No more words were needed. After she left, Jenna looked at me. Eyes soft. You're making something out of this, she said. You turned something ugly into something human. I shrugged, but inside, I knew she was right. Pain doesn't vanish. It transforms. And sometimes, if you let it breathe, it becomes a map for someone else's survival. That night, I walked Oliver through the neighborhood, The leaves had fully turned now reds, golds, oranges falling like little reminders that everything changes, eventually. He sniffed at every corner, tail wagging, confident and calm. It hit me then. I hadn't thought about the wedding in days. I didn't know if it had already happened. I didn't check, I didn't care. Their love story no longer included me, and mine didn't include them. It was a strange kind of freedom. Lonely, sometimes, but real. In mine. Time passed. Not quickly, not all at once, but in fragments. Little pieces of living started to stitch themselves into something that resembled a life again. I began saying yes to things I used to avoid: dinners, weekend road trips, volunteering at the local shelter. I even signed up for a writing workshop downtown. Most of the people in the class were older, retired, writing their memoirs or poems about late spouses. But it felt good to sit in a room where nobody knew me as a cousin or the girl who got betrayed. I was just Haley, a woman with a story and a pen. One evening after class, the instructor, a sharp, silver-haired woman named Lorraine, stopped me as I packed up. "You've got a voice," she said. "It's clear, but it carries weight. You've lived something. People feel that." I smiled politely, brushing it off. "Thanks, I'm just figuring it out." She narrowed her eyes. "Don't hide behind humility. You're allowed to stand in what you've earned." That stayed with me, not because I believed it immediately, but because a part of me wanted to for so long. I had let other people define what I was allowed to feel, to claim, to say. Medicine had stolen so much more than just a relationship. She'd taken the version of me that believed I had value even without sacrifice. But now, I was starting to take that back, piece by piece. Jenna noticed it first. We were at brunch, bottomless mimosas and waffles with strawberries, and she paused mid-bite. "You're different lately," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "Good different," she grinned, confident different. "Less like you're waiting for the next emotional hit." I considered that. It wasn't that the pain was gone. It still flickered sometimes, a birthday, a memory, a song that came on at the grocery store and made my throat tighten. But I didn't live there anymore. I had relocated. That night, I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I stood in front of the mirror, lifted my shirt slightly, and looked at the scar, faint now, paler than before, a small, curved line right below my ribcage. For months, I'd avoided it as if looking at it gave Madison power. But now, I saw it differently. Not as damage, as proof that I had loved deeply, that I had chosen to help, that I had given something of myself without guarantee of return and survived the aftermath. Not many people could say that. The next morning, I woke up to another email. This one wasn't from Madison or Ethan or anyone I recognized. It was from an editor at a podcast. She'd read my essay and wanted to know if I'd be open to being interviewed. "We're doing a series on family betrayal and medical ethics," she wrote. "Your story is exactly the kind of honest, human perspective you want to highlight." I didn't say yes right away. I closed the email and thought about it for days. Part of me still feared being the girl who gave a kidney and lost everything. That label stuck to my chest like a sticker I couldn't peel off. I didn't want pity. I didn't want to be reduced. But another part of me, stronger now, understood something else. This story wasn't just about loss anymore. It was about reclamation. About what happens when you keep going, even after being gutted by the people you trusted most. So I said yes. The recording took place 2 weeks later in a quiet studio across town. I wore my favorite sweater, brought Oliver with me, and sat in front of a mic as the host asked gentle, thoughtful questions. I told the truth, not the glossy kind, the kind with edges. I told them how it felt to watch my cousin get engaged to the man who once swore he'd never love anyone the way he loved me. I told them about the silence after the surgery, about the way family pretended nothing had happened, about the scar and the insomnia and the anger that rotted me from the inside, out for months. And then I told them about healing. About writing, about finding strangers who became mirrors, about learning that forgiveness isn't a door you have to open, it's just a wall you stop banging your head against. When the interview ended, the producer pulled off her headphones and looked at me for a long moment. "You have no idea how many people need to hear that," she said quietly. And for the first time, I believed her, not because I wanted to be known, but because I had something worth knowing. The podcast episode aired on a Tuesday. I didn't advertise it much, just posted a quiet link on my blog and let it find its way. But somehow it did. Emails trickled and then poured. Not just from strangers, but from people I hadn't spoken to in years. College friends, an old high school teacher, even a distant aunt who'd once called me desensitive at a family reunion. They weren't asking for drama. They were thanking me for truth. I thought I was crazy for still hurting. "You said the words I couldn't. Thank you for making it okay to be angry and still move forward." Some messages made me cry. Others made me sit still for a long time, rereading them. letting them echo in that part of me that had once felt abandoned and voiceless. But one message stopped everything. It was from Ethan. The subject line read, I listened. I didn't open it right away. I went for a walk, no music, just Oliver, the breeze, and my thoughts running wild. When I got home, I stared at the screen again. Then I clicked, Haley, I heard the podcast. Twice, actually. The first time I felt sick. Not because you were wrong, but because you were so completely, heartbreakingly right. I thought I could live with the story we told ourselves. That we didn't mean to hurt you. That love, just redirected. But hearing your voice, hearing the spaces between your words that made it real. I know I don't deserve to be part of your healing. I won't pretend I can undo what I participated in. But I need you to know. I see it now. I see you. And I'm sorry I ever made you feel like your love was disposable. That was my weakness, not yours. You were the bravest person in every room we stood in. I just never had the courage to say it until now. I won't reach out again. But thank you for speaking when I stayed silent. Anthony read it twice, not because I needed his apology, but because it felt like closing a chapter I didn't realize was still cracked open. And then I deleted the email. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. Because when you stop living in the echo of someone else's guilt, you realize not every apology needs a response. Some things are better left as acknowledgments and time goes that don't haunt, but simply pass by. Later that week, I stood in front of a small crowd at a community storytelling night. It was hosted by the Writing Center I joined an open mic event where people shared stories of change, love, loss, hope. When they called my name, my hands shook. But I walked to the mic anyway. I didn't read the original essay instead. I read something new, a piece about strength, about learning to live in your own skin again, about reclaiming silence and turning it into something sacred. When I finished, the room was quiet for a moment. Then, applause, not loud, not roaring. Just honest. Real. Afterwards, an older woman approached me. Her eyes were soft, rimmed with tears. I lost my sister 5 years ago. She whispered. She never apologized for the way she left. But listening to you, I think I can let it go now. I touched her arm gently. You don't have to let go of the pain all at once, I said. You just have to stop carrying it like it's your identity. She nodded, wiping her cheek. We hugged like old friends who had just met. That night, I walked home beneath a sky full of stars. No music, no messages. Just the hum of streetlights, and the soft breath of a dog who become my silent witness too. It all. There were no dramatic endings. No final confrontation. No comeuppance. Just life. Messy, quiet, whole in its incompleteness. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. Spring arrived quietly that year. There was no dramatic thaw, no sudden burst of sunshine, just slow mornings, warmer air, and tulips pushing their way through the cold ground like they had something to prove. I liked that. There was a kind of poetry in it, growth that didn't ask for attention. That April, I was asked to speak at a local panel on organ donation. It wasn't glamorous, just a few rows of folding chairs in a library basement, but the invitation came with a handwritten note from the event coordinator. Your story made people feel seen. We want to create a space where more of that can happen. I almost said no. Not because I was afraid, just unsure if I had anything left to say. But then I remembered the woman at the cafe, the podcast messages, the way strangers kept finding pieces of themselves in my pain. So I said yes. I wore a navy dress and flat shoes, nothing flashy. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was just showing up as myself. The panel went well. Afterward, people asked thoughtful questions. A teenager came up to me and said her brother had received a liver from a stranger last year. She didn't know how to process it. It felt like we owed a ghost, she said. I told her, you don't owe anyone your suffering, you only owe yourself your honesty, she cried, then hugged me. And I realized something in that moment. This wasn't just healing anymore. It was legacy. Not the kind people write in stone or print in headlines. The quiet kind. The kind that slips into someone else's story and gives them permission to feel. Later that month, I got a wedding invitation in the mail. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But no, it was from a mutual cousin. One of the few relatives who'd stayed neutral through it all. Madison and Ethan would be there. Their names weren't on the invitation. But I knew this side of the family was small. Everyone attended everything. I stared at the envelope for a long time. And then, with the calm of someone who had nothing left to prove, I tossed it into the recycling bin. Not out of anger, out of choice. I didn't need to be in rooms where I once felt like furniture, present, silent, and overlooked. I didn't want polite smiles or whispered gossip over potato salad. I had built a life that didn't orbit them anymore, and that was enough. On the 1-year anniversary of the surgery, I drove to the ocean. Alone. Not because no one offered to come, but because I needed the stillness. I sat on a weathered bench with a small journal in my lap and wrote a single sentence: I gave life. And I chose to keep mine. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just breathed out the waves rolled. In and out like time itself, constant, unbothered by human drama. I watched a little girl chase a kite across the sand, her laughter rising like music no one needed to explain. And I thought, this is what healing really looks like. Not justice, not revenge, but freedom. Freedom from needing the people who hurt you to make it right. Freedom from carrying stories that no longer serve you. Freedom from shrinking yourself to fit into the spaces where you were once loved conditionally. As the sun dipped lower, I made a quiet promise to myself to keep writing, to keep showing up for people who needed someone to go first, to keep loving even when it's risky. But most of all, to never again hand over parts of myself just to be accepted. I went home that night and fed Oliver, then curled up on the couch with a blanket and a book. No scrolling. No peeking at wedding photos. No imaginary conversations in my head. Just peace. And presence. And the quiet joy of knowing that I had survived something I once thought would destroy me, and turned it into something that might one day save someone else. I closed my eyes, the final thought drifting through me like a prayer. I was never just the girl who gave a kidney. I was the girl who took her story back, and in doing so saved her own heart.